Okay, now, before I start this session, this is about spirituality and how it affects everything I do. Before I start this, I must say that this is one subject that I am most inclined towards. And my challenge always is that I still lack some aspects that I still don't have enough clarity on. And that's exactly the reason I still don't cover it enough. But it does make a big difference because everything that I do is around my belief in us as human beings, and so yeah. So I'm just gonna try my level best to do and answer your questions, but I think that plays a big part. I come across a lot of people who, when you speak with them, they literally are, it's almost like they look at everything as a problem. They look at all the chaos around them as chaos inside them. Now, let me ask everyone a question here, okay? So let's say you have a problem, or let's say something is happening around you. That's external. Correct me. So let me speak with one person so I could interact and make it more clear for everyone. Lavanya, would you like to speak with me on this?
Yes, Jack, no problem.
Okay. Would you like to? Yeah. Okay. So let's say you have a problem or something around is happening that's not necessarily very positive. Okay. Is that happening inside you or outside you?
Outside you.
Okay. So let's say, can you think of an instance, and you don't have to share it, but can you think of an instance that was happening that was disturbing you internally? Okay. So even though that whatever is happening outside, can I ask you, why was it disturbing you internally? Because everything that happens outside. Why was it disturbing you internally?
Because you're taking it too personal.
Okay, so there is attachment. Okay, so you gotta be detached from everything around you. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say you have your family or your kids or your siblings or your partner or whatever. Loving someone is one thing, and being detached is another. Just because you keep yourself detached doesn't mean that you don't love them. Okay, that's very important to understand. Most people get this wrong. I love my kids, but I'm not attached to them. I love my business, but I'm not attached to it. Okay, now when I said everything that I do in my business is affected by spirituality, that's exactly what I mean. That I could have a bad day and it still doesn't affect me because it's outside me, and because I'm completely detached, it has zero effect on me. I come across people, and I was sharing earlier about WhatsApp, and they get disturbed by WhatsApp. It's just a tool. It's your phone. It's ringing outside. How is it disturbing you inside? That's because you have chaos inside you. That you're relating or connecting to what's happening outside. Okay, you have chaos inside you, and that chaos, reducing that chaos, the internal chaos, has a lot to do with not just detaching yourself, but the fact that you are not what you accumulate. You are not what you do. You are a human being. That means being in this moment. That's who you are. And when you start to attach yourself with the outcome, and when you start to attach yourself with what you accumulate, and when you start to attach yourself with the results, and when you start to attach yourself with, I am a property investor, that's when actually the chaos starts inside you. That's when you start to get disturbed. Okay, otherwise you wouldn't get disturbed. It's the expectations. You work on your business and you don't get results. You get disturbed. That's because you've attached yourself to the outcome of what you do. It's not about attaching yourself to the outcome. It's about being human being, like being present in the moment and giving it the best you have. In fact, something that I learned from Dr. Wayne Dyer is we are not human being. We are not humans doing. We are human beings. That means every time when you are, chasing something or doing something or working towards something, it feels like effort because you're doing it. When you actually allow things to come to you, it doesn't feel like effort. Let me ask you something, Lavanya. Has there been a day when you're working on something and it just feels like enormous effort?
Yeah, many times.
And has there been a day when you do something and it just doesn't feel like any effort at all?
Yeah, both.
Okay, good. The day when it felt like effort is when you are, as human, you are doing something. The day it doesn't feel like effort is because you're allowing things to come to you.
Yeah.
Okay. When you are just being present in the moment and literally saying, okay, I trust that there is God and that God is within me. And if you don't believe in God, you just have to believe in yourself. You don't have to believe in God. But if you do believe in God, then there's God, right? Maybe just some sort of light. No one
It's
has seen God. But
super.
sorry?
It's just some power, that's all.
Whatever it is. And I believe that power is inside you, love. It's nowhere else. It's nowhere else. It's inside you. So you could turn up and say, I am God, or have God inside me. And in either way, you're right. As long as you don't say it with ego. Okay? There's alternative ego, which a lot of people create to be able to satisfy themselves and trying to get things done. Okay? But God is inside every single one of us. Okay? And when you, like I said, trust the process, and when you trust yourself and you allow things to come to you, it won't feel like effort. It will feel effortless. If you look at this session that I'm giving now, I am so tired, it's unbelievable. But at the same time, it feels just so natural to me. And I'm not putting in any effort at all. And that's because it's just so natural to me. I'm allowing it to come to me rather than trying to do something. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So very important to detach yourself from the outcome. No attachment to the outcome. No attachment to any person or the results or whatever it is that you're trying to do, and allowing and trusting the process. It's not about what you accumulate and what you achieve, or when you say, I am an investor, people call me up and say, tell me about yourself. I tell them I'm a property investor, we lead PEN, but at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'm just a spiritual being. Okay. That's what I'm thinking. And when that process is happening, I have no chaos. I don't look at nothing as a problem. Everything is just something to solve, or something to, it's almost like I'm looking at problems and I'm thinking, this just requires solutions, creative solutions. And if I it's almost like if I allow the things to come to me and the process, I tend to get ideas. It's almost like all my senses start to work stronger when I look at something and say, okay, this, call it a problem, even though it's not a problem, but let's say call it something that needs a solution. And when I allow the process, it's almost like all my faculties or all my senses help me to find a solution to that. It's only when I allow things to come to me. There are times I do get in that mode, oh, I really need to get this done today. And then I feel tired because now I become that person who's bringing his ego thinking, I can do this. Does that make sense? When you're trying to do something, you're using your ego to do it. But when you allow things to come to you, you are letting the process of that God or you as a spiritual being happen in and itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next time you feel tired because you're running around things or trying to get things done or trying to achieve things, remember, that's your ego. That's your ego. Okay. And it happens to me, I must say, I do confess it happens to me, but a lot lesser with time, a lot lesser with time. There are times that I'd just sit out and I'd work straight 12 hours in front of a laptop and not feel tired. And there are times when I would do maybe 2 hours and I feel tired. Has that happened to you, Lavanya?
Yeah.
That's because we use our ego to try and achieve. And that when that doesn't happen, we get tired, we start overthinking things, and that's all ego playing its part. Okay? I'm going to cover a few more aspects of that because there's a lot more to it. Also,
I don't know whether we could say that as an ego or overthinking can be sometimes you're confused with the decision as well, maybe.
when you allow things to come to you, you'll have no confusion.
Okay. Okay.
You need to allow things to come to you. I'll give you an example. Okay, very simple example that happened only 3 hours ago. Okay, I walked into a 74-bed hotel, really poor condition, which is a bonus, right? When something you see is in a poor condition, that's a bonus in property for that matter, anything. Okay, I walked in and I'm looking at the property and I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. Okay, 74-bed hotel, no down payment, no lease, 10 years renewable lease available, straight down 65,000 rent. They'll give you a rent-free period to cover the work as well. I walked out and I spoke with the agent. I said, just instinctively, this deal doesn't feel right.
Why?
I think when I was speaking with the agent and the way he was describing the landlord, I just didn't have a great feeling. And I insist on feeling. There's no logic. Logic-wise, I should just go and take that hotel. It's going to cost anywhere between 250,000, maybe 300,000 to get it done. We get the hotel done. That's a 74-bed hotel. Is going to easily generate over 2 million, easily. Okay, and you could be sitting on just shy of £1 million in profits. Instinctively, just felt wrong. Logically, it made a lot of sense, and I walked out thinking, I'm just going to allow my intuition, which is very, very spiritual based, okay, allow to direct me. And I said, I said to the agent, I said, I'm going to leave this. I just intuitively don't feel right.
But as a property investor, sometimes we do say numbers should lead, not the feelings or your personal choices, right? So which
I
one?
will I'll let you decide. Here is something that I tend to do. Okay, there are times when I'm driven by numbers. Okay, now that's my business acumen connected to my ego. Okay, because when you start to do numbers and when you're doing things, you are actually using your ego. Okay, and yes, you do need to do your numbers. Please do not buy a property deal thinking this session you've done and you're spiritual and you're going to use your intuition to buy a deal. Please don't. Okay, you still need to do your numbers. But there are times before I even do my numbers, I'll ask my intuition. And if my intuition says no, I'm not going to invest my time for numbers. This is a 74-bed hotel, requires at least 1 week's full-time work to just find out how much it's going to cost to get the work done and do all the numbers. And just because I was feeling intuitively not right, I said, I'm not going to invest that week.
Jack, I've got a good example of that. Quite a few years back when I was running my training provision, I left a small office and I came into a massive, big, upgraded place. And when I met the landlord, initially, I didn't feel right. And where I come from, it's like my spirit didn't take, it just did not feel right. But I looked at the facility that we would be offering to our young people. It was modern. It was bringing them into something that maybe a lot of them had never had the opportunity to encounter. And it was hell on earth. The guy, after paying over £15,000 as a deposit, he then started playing up, turning off the heating, doing all sorts of crazy, just to get me to break my contract so that he could keep my 15,000. And in the end, he just locked us out. Even though we were paying the rent, he locked us out. And the first thing I said, when I thought back, I said, this did not feel right, but you still went ahead. So I totally get what you're saying about that feeling of something's not right. Some call it, sixth sense. I call it my spiritual man was saying, walk away. But I'm thinking, but this is just going to be so great for my young people. So yeah, I just wanted to give an example.
Thank you for that, Jennifer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like I said, yes, please do your numbers. Please do not buy a property deal unless you've done your numbers in depth. But at the same time, remember, if it feels intuitively something is wrong, walk away from it. My experience personally has been that every time when something feels not right, and when I do it, in most cases, it turns out to be not right. Okay. And that is, like I said, your ego telling you, oh, it looks good, and I'm going to do it. And it doesn't go right. Okay. Also, ego has a very makes life difficult for most people in terms of what people think of me. Okay. Till the day you are bound by what people think of you, you are a prisoner in your own ego. Okay, you are actually a prisoner. If you want to ever feel completely free in life, not just detaching yourself and everything else that we've shared so far, you need to detach yourself from the thinking of other people. So what is it that people think about me? Okay, now I know with the level of network that we have and everything else, a lot of people would have very, very strong opinions about me. Okay, but I am not a prisoner of their thinking. Okay, I probably was in my 20s, early 20s, but at some point I learned in my late 20s that if you are always thinking, oh, what is he going to think of me? What is he going to think of me? Like sometimes even we think about our parents thinking, oh, what is my dad going to think, or mom going to think, or, someone in my family is going to think, or my kids, what are they going to think about it? You are their prisoners. If you want to feel free, you cannot be thinking like that, because that actually comes from ego. Remember, what does Lavanya think about me? That simply is nothing more than my ego thinking, nothing else. Okay, it's when I'm free from thinking, oh, what does Lavanya think of me, that I actually can take good decisions in my own life, and that be the human being that I would look in the mirror who is doing something valuable in this world. Does that make sense? Okay. If you are, for example, if you were to go on social media and write something, or if you run an ad, you're going to have people cursing you, swearing at you. But if you are bound by that, or if you create content on social media and thinking, what are people going to think about me? You're bound, you're a prisoner of them. You're never going to be able to scale your business. Okay. So you need to be free from what people think about you. Okay. So there's a guy called Peter Sage, and he used to call it goop, which is good opinion of other people. Okay. It's none of your concern. You do your thing. The only and only person who you need to be able to reply to is yourself, the person you see in the mirror. And that if you are doing a good job, and if you're really helping people out, that you'd be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, look, I did a good job. I have done my best, and that is all there is to it. Okay. In that moment, have you done your best? That is all that matters. Okay. And when I say done your best, it again doesn't mean that you're doing things. Okay. It means that you're helping another human being. That's all that matters. Okay. And remember, I always say this, and I've said this 500,000 times, and I'd never forget this. The only person you can actually help is the person sitting next to you. And that comes from Mother Teresa. Okay. You can't help the person that's the one after, because he's a little away from you. So the only person you can help is you. Only people that I can help in this moment is the people on this call. That's all I can do. I can't go beyond this. Okay. So only help the person that's sitting next to you, and then the one after that when you finish from them, and so on and so forth. And your aim, and one of the things that there's a lot of research on this as well. But again, it goes back to spirituality, that when you chase happiness, you'll always be chasing happiness. When you chase meaning in your life, that means, and meaning is connected to serving people. Okay. When you are not necessarily even chasing not the best word, but when you are focused on the meaning in your life, what does life mean to you? And when you're serving people, happiness will follow you. Okay. If you ask me, and I say this with a lot of respect, that most of the times I'm pretty happy internally. I'm pretty peaceful internally. Okay. I could be sitting and there's a lot of chaos in business or at home, at work, kids shouting, there's loud TV, there's 10 people calling me at the same time, there's 20 deals happening at the same time, solicitors chasing, people call madness. And I have zero chaos inside me, zero chaos. And that's because I have no attachment to anything. I literally do not think of all of this. This is all like, you know what, I can only serve one person at a time. And if there's another person waiting, they have to just wait. I can't. I can only help one person at a time. I can only deal with one person at a time. So chaos is never outside. It's always inside you. It's not the WhatsApp and the social media and the kids and the family and siblings and the parents and the people calling you and the inquiries and, growing your portfolio. That's all chaos. That's outside. It has nothing to do with how you feel internally until and unless you don't allow it to disturb you internally. Okay? That's what matters. Like I said, getting to a point where something feels effortless is the point. It's almost like that is the point you want to get to. You do something, but it just feels effortless. You go and do a viewing, it feels effortless. You go and speak with an investor, it feels effortless. You raise money, it feels effortless. You get the deal done, it feels effortless. You go and create more content, it feels effortless. You do an interview, it feels effortless. You grow the network, it feels effortless. Literally everything that you do, you need to get to a point where it just feels effortless. And I can assure you it's not easy. But the more you detach yourself from the outcome, the more effortless it will feel. Okay. Another thing that I'd like to cover within this is that building your skills. It's almost like when you look at a diamond, it just goes through so much hardship before it becomes a diamond from a coal. That's how we human beings are. You go through some sort of hardship. Don't look at your hard times as hard times. They're the ones which are polishing you to become the diamond you're supposed to be. Okay. But at the same time, going through that hardship with a lot of internal peace is, I think, the most important part. It's almost like the best space to be in. Okay. Like you go through a hard time and you're still peaceful. You go through a difficult deal, you're still peaceful. You go through a difficult relationship, you're still peaceful. But all of this is polishing you to be the diamond that you're supposed to be. That's where it's at. Lavanya, are you with me on this? Do you have any questions on this?
I understand. If you could elaborate a bit more with the example.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. So let's say you woke up and you had an argument with someone around you. Okay, either an employee or investor, doesn't really matter, someone, okay? And it just really, like it disturbed you for that moment, okay? Remember, the opinion of that person has nothing to do with how you feel about yourself, okay? As long as you're being honest for that situation and you're doing your best, that's all that matters, okay? And not letting that relationship or the moment of that relationship disturb you internally while you learn from the situation. So maybe you had an argument, and now from that argument, you think, okay, what is it that I did or said that I could improve on and keep building my skills to become the diamond that you're meant to be, and still not have that, still not disturb you internally, is the space to be at. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Let's say maybe you did a deal and you got it wrong, okay? And it happens with everyone. I mean, you speak with the most experienced investors, and they'll tell you, show me an investor who hasn't done a bad deal, okay? Let's say you did a bad deal. You came back home, you thought, shit, I've just lost maybe 100 grand on this deal. It's going to take me a year or two to recoup, right? What is money? Money is just a tool, right? It's just a tool. A lot of people give it a bit more value than what they're supposed to. It's just a tool that people are printing, okay? If you understand that logically, then what difference does it make? It's almost like you had two hammers, you lost one, you still have one, and you're gonna use that one hammer now to create another one for you.
Mm-hmm. For me personally, money is not going to have an impact.
That's just an example, okay?
Yeah.
It's mostly relationships, right? So relationships, I gave you an example. Again, it goes back to that detaching yourself from the opinion of someone else, and that you did your best in that situation and learn from that situation to become the person that you're meant to be, and still not affect you internally. And that if, let's say, you have 50 people running around for you and there's chaos in the business, that chaos does not affect you internally, is the space to be at. Okay, because that's external. What has that got to do with your internal peace? Nothing. If you don't let it affect you, it cannot. If you let it affect you, then you're using your ego, and that's affecting your ego and nothing else. Because your spiritual being cannot be affected by external chaos. It can't be. You're just in this moment. How can this moment be ruined by something that happened in the past or is going to happen in the future? It can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A little more extra layers on this. Gratitude and forgiveness. Okay. Raise your hand if you have this internal gratitude every single day, or show gratitude every single day. Okay. Now you might be thinking all these words like gratitude. What do you mean, Jack? Like, what do you want me just to wake up every day and say thank you? Yes, that's what I mean. When you wake up and you have your first meal or your first coffee and you say thank you, I cannot think of any more peace in that moment than anything else. That there's no more peaceful moment for me when I'm having my meal. In fact, if you ever sit with me while having a meal, you probably might just pick up that moment when I'm saying thank you. I sometimes fold my hands. Other times I'm just looking like this up and saying, that's the body language that I have. And I can assure you with all my conviction that that is the most peaceful moment of my whole life. And I do it so much so that I have so many more peaceful moments every single day. Okay. I like I said, I'm internally very peaceful anyway. I have no chaos, nothing. But that moment of gratitude is the crown that I wear. That's like a crown that I wear. Okay. Forgiveness is another one. When you are angry at someone else, Lavanya, do you want to answer this? When you're angry at someone else, who are you actually angry at?
Myself first.
Yeah. who is carrying that negative energy?
It's the person who is angry.
Who is angry, not the person you're angry at. It doesn't affect them at all. Okay. You know, there was something that I heard a long time ago. Let's say I bring you a gift, Lavanya, and you don't take it. Who does it belong to now?
The person who bought it.
Okay. So let's say I bring anger to you and you don't take it. Who does it belong to? That negative energy is now taken by me, right? Yeah. Okay. So the next time you find yourself angry or frustrated or agitated or any of those negative emotions towards someone, think twice, because the only person who's carrying that negative energy is you. And
for me personally, I don't carry that negative energy, but only thing sometimes is I just move away.
That's okay. That's okay. Sometimes it's not possible to deal with certain people, and moving away or creating the distance is the right choice. I do believe that every human being has this light of God in them, and that I'm going to treat them well anyway, irrespective of what they did with me. But at the same time, yes, some people do need to be distant. Okay. Spiritually, it's not right, but we do live in a difficult world. So yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's
like I
another.
I don't have all the answers sometimes, but the answers that I have, I'm just sharing with you. Okay.
Sorry, Jack. There's another saying in
Please
relation to unforgiveness.
Please.
It refers to the fact that it's like you drinking poison and waiting for the other person to drop down
die.
dead.
That is true. That is true. That is true. Anger and poison, anger and agitation or frustration towards someone is like poison, drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Okay. Next time you're driving on the road, someone cuts you off and you feel angry, think twice. Okay. So I was sharing, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for that. But gratitude and forgiveness are the two crowns of spirituality, of being human, if I can say so. Like just being present and being human. These are the two crowns that you can wear that play the biggest part. Okay. I'm actually going to ask you a question, Lavanya here, and Jennifer, you as well. Where does most of the suffering sit? So when you suffer with something, okay, either it is in, where does it sit? Where is the suffering actually?
Internally.
It's in your mind and your thinking?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So the next time you come across a situation which you're finding difficult, okay, remember, there's no suffering outside you. Everything is the way it is and the way it's supposed to be. You're suffering because of your perception towards that person or that situation. And embracing any given situation is the cure to every suffering that you've ever faced and will ever face. Embracing. Let's say someone died. Remember, we're mortal beings. We're going to die. We all are going to die. And accepting that and embracing that moment, and within that, every single moment, if you are going through something difficult, it's because of your perception towards that situation or that person, not the way it is. So it's about your self-awareness and looking at the situation the way it is rather than the way you look at it. And the day you can look at a situation the way it is rather than the way you think about it, most of the suffering will disappear. Most of the suffering will disappear. Is that clear, Lavanya?
Yes, Jack.
So if you're going through a tough time at the moment, I want you to slow down and reflect back and look at yourself as a third person and say, what is this situation doing to me? Is it making me a bitter or a better person? Because when you become bitter, you're using your ego. When you're becoming better, you're using it's almost like the spiritual power that you have to make you a better person and learn from the situation and nothing else. Are you with me?
Yes, Jack. Yes.
All right, let's talk about enlightenment. Okay, what do you think enlightenment is, Lavanya?
Just knowing or understanding, and sorry, Jack, I
That's okay. No, that's okay. That's okay. Let's break down the word.
yeah.
Let's break down the word. Enlightenment, it's almost like, if you look at the word, and I've not read it in the dictionary, I'm just giving you my definition. Okay. Looking at a situation and thinking, do I understand the situation? Okay. Enlightenment. Okay. Like, it's almost like putting light on a situation and thinking, enlightenment. Okay. That's my understanding. Like I said, I've not read the actual dictionary bit of it. Okay. So when you look at any situation or any relationship that you have, if you just slow down and reflect at everything about that person or the situation and learn from the moment, I personally don't think there's anything more in enlightenment itself than learning from the situation and not using your ego to solve it. Does that make sense? When you try and use your ego, it's almost like you're thinking, okay, I can solve this, or thinking, you know what, I'm gonna allow God, or I'm gonna just allow my intuition, whatever you believe in. Like I said, if you don't believe in God, that's absolutely fine. Just believing in yourself and your intuition, right? I'm just gonna allow my intuition to guide me on how I can solve this situation. Now, that situation could be with a person, or in most cases, it's always the relationships, or it could be just a logical situation that needs to be dealt with. But allowing your intuition to guide you to solve that situation, I believe that's what enlightenment is, and nothing else. When you become the learner and you look everyone around you, and you look at someone who's been drinking and is probably sitting in a gutter, what have you learned? Or you look at someone who eats a lot of sugar, what have you learned? You look at someone who doesn't work out, what have you learned? You look at someone who talks a lot but doesn't do a lot, what have you learned? You look at a kid and he's just happy anyway, irrespective, what have you learned? If you look at, you go outside and it's raining, okay? What do you see? You walk around, what do you see? Every single moment, I feel that what you learn from that moment and what you experience and how you feel is all there is to enlightenment. I don't think there's anything else. The problem occurs when you leave. It's almost like you don't allow things to come to you and you say, no, you know what, I can do this. So you use this ego to make things happen. That's when things go wrong. That's when the chaos starts in mind. Oh, I'm supposed to reach this goal, right? In business, if you don't have goals, you're not going to achieve them, right? But remember, who is saying this? That's your ego. And that's when chaos starts. But if you just allow things to come to you, you will have internal peace and you will have, I don't think I'm at a space where I can say no chaos, but I can say very little chaos. Okay. If you're going through a situation where you're suffering, let's say you have a relationship that's making you suffer, going through that situation and learning from it will lead to enlightenment. Going through it and learning from the situation will lead to enlightenment. Okay. Sometimes you do have to go through situations, sometimes, not all the time, to be able to feel that, you know what, I understood the situation, I've learned what I needed to, and now I'm through it and it doesn't affect me anymore. The state of being enlightened. Yeah, what is enlightened? Thank you, Martin. Learning from the moment, yeah, I shared that. Learning from anticipation and facing it, okay? So another one within that is that if, let's say, you're in a situation, you know it's gonna get worse, anticipating and acting on it makes a big difference, okay? If you don't anticipate things, you don't reflect back and spend time observing your actions, observing your thoughts, and observing your words, that it can lead to suffering again. Okay, so very important to anticipate and to act on it. Facing it is very, very important. Okay? Another thing that within this is that, and this is very important, and this is something that I find very difficult to explain as well. Okay. Now, if you think about it, you are a spiritual being, okay? And everything and everyone around you has this light inside them of God, right? Yes, no? Yeah. Like I said, if you don't believe in God, just believing in yourself and that you are exactly the same person as me, and that we are made from the same blood and bones and tissue and everything else, we're the same. So you have God inside you, you have that light, everyone else has that light, everything has that light, yes? So we are all on the same frequency, right? Same frequency. So let's say now you want to make more money. You want to make more money. Is money on the same frequency as you are?
No, Jack.
Okay, so let me explain this, okay? The reason most people struggle to make as much money as they want to is because they're not aligned on the same frequency as what they want. It could be money, it could be something else, it could be a nice house, it could be maybe holidays or whatever it is that you want. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's because you're not aligned, you have not aligned yourself on the same frequency, okay? The day you do, that thing is already in the same frequency. You've just not aligned it with your frequency. What do I mean by that? Okay. It's, again, goes back to allowing things to come to you. Allowing things to come to you. Slowing down, observing, and letting things come to you rather than you trying to do things. Now, I don't mean just sit around and don't do anything. That's not what I mean. Okay. What I mean is when you wake up, let your intuition help you and guide you towards it. Okay. What is it that you are doing that's not helping you align with what you want in the first place? Okay. Is it a good deal that you want and then you just don't have the right frequency? Okay, just slow down. Slow down. The more you slow down, the more you'll feel that you'd be able to align that frequency with yourself, allowing you to attract that. Has there been a time, Lavanya, when you woke up and just something that you were thinking last night just came to you itself? Yeah. Okay. Another practice in spirituality is that before you sleep, 5 minutes before you sleep, that you think about the things that you actually want or need in the first place. Okay. And that in and itself is almost like you're aligning your frequency with what you want rather than what you don't. Okay. I'm not talking about the secrets and sitting around and not doing anything. I'm talking about really doing your work and doing the best you can and, you know, building your skills and keep polishing your skills and communication skills and everything else. But at the same time, I'm saying, Let your intuition guide you, allowing things to come to you and spending about 5, 10, 20, 15, 20 minutes every day, reflecting back and thinking about the things that you want to be aligned with rather than the things that you don't. Because remember, if you're driving, okay, and you see a pole on your left-hand side, and if that's the one you're looking at, where are you heading? You're heading towards that pole, okay? So that's very, very simple. Spending 5, 10, 20, 15, 20 minutes a day, reflecting on things that you want rather than things that you don't, allowing you to align things with your spiritual level. When I say level, I don't mean level, spiritual. It's almost like the spiritual connection, allowing you to attract those things, okay? Very, very important, okay? But again, I'm not saying just sit around. I'm saying working towards it, okay? Action always is a goal, okay? Detachment from things and people, I cannot insist enough. I think very much right at the core of being the peaceful person or being in peace with yourself and things around you is, okay? I feel that enlightenment comes when you can see everyone around you as the way you are, and that you want to be treated, or they want to be treated as like you would treat yourself, and then you treat them like you want to be treated. And that detachment and the good opinion of other people group doesn't affect you at all, and that you do your best in every given moment, okay? Enlightenment, I think, is just learning from the moment, learning how your intuition, it's almost like you've learned your intuition. It's giving you signals, it's giving you some sort of signs, and those signs is something that you learn to read well and really well, and then you act on them. And then, like I said, allowing things to come to you, okay? The day you find yourself pushing things, remember, that's your ego saying, I can make things happen. And that you gotta give that up at some point. Remember, we all want to make more money, but if you are making money so you could accumulate and not help people, you're just playing with your ego, and that you're not gonna be that. You're not gonna feel that peace inside you. You're always gonna have this chaos, okay? That's what my understanding of spirituality is. Like I said, I could sit here and tell you stories of how I have listened to my intuition, I've got it right, and how not, and I've got it wrong. I can tell you stories about my really, really difficult relationship with my dad, and that everything about that relationship was to do with my ego rather than his, and that every single moment that when I look back at that relationship, or for that matter, you know, most people live in this cage of expectations of their parents, and that you need to come out of that. The only person you need to look in the mirror is you, and not your parents or your siblings or anyone else, okay? So come out of the expectations of your parents, because a lot of people still do. I know people in their 60s who still do end up making wrong decisions because they think, oh, their parents expected them to do something, okay? You need to come out of that, okay? But at the same time, I think enlightenment is about learning from every single second of your life and applying that learning every single moment, okay? And that, remember, money is nothing, absolutely nothing more than just a tool to live a good life, provide a good life for your family, for people around you, and maybe if you're lucky enough to help people around you, your community, your network, and if you're lucky, you may get to that, okay? I massively believe in luck. I massively believe that when I do things come to me sometimes, and that luck has been, like I've been very fortunate to have a difficult life, have had a difficult life to become the person that I am today. Okay. And I'm not saying the ego, I'm saying I've been fortunate to have had that difficult life, to become that person that became a learner, to be able to get to a point where I'm able to teach spirituality to someone. I've just been very, very lucky. I should have not been even alive. So just find myself very lucky. And that I would love to be able to elaborate and dig deeper and learn more about spirituality and share more in the near future. And you'll see a lot more of that, Any questions, Lavanya?
No, Jack.
Okay, everything that I just shared clear?
Yes.
Everything that I shared, you think you can apply to whatever extent?
Most of the things apply, but sometimes it
It's
hurts.
not easy.
It's not easy.
No, don't get me wrong. I still cannot apply in most cases. Well, not most cases. Most cases I can apply. In some cases I cannot apply.
Yeah. Some cases I walk away, even for simple things. But
it's not easy. It's not easy. Okay. When I say it's not easy, can you see that it's ego saying it? Because if I allow things, then it's supposed to be easy. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. At least, see, this is the self-awareness that we need to have to understand that when I'm saying it's not easy, that is my ego saying it rather than the actual spiritual being that I am. Because if I allow things to happen, they're not supposed to be hard.
Yeah. Angry is the first one I definitely 100% believe.
Yeah.
If somebody is shouting, means they are trying to put their point, or they're angry at themselves.
That's true. That's true. Falak, any questions?
Hi, Jack. No, very interesting session today. Both sessions actually. Just on the topic of the spirituality, which is the one we're doing now, and I understand what you're saying. I actually funnily follow Peter Sage a lot as well, so I understand all this nuances that he talks about. I think where we find ourselves as human beings, really, because we are always going to find ourselves in that difficult situation because we're not perfect.
Yep.
Is where we go from the ego-driven, stress-driven human being where we want to have everything, or you find yourself just in that state of not doing anything. And I think, as you said, it is a lot of practice, because I know a lot of people tend to ask that question that, oh, how do I get there? And what I've just resolved in my head is that I don't think anybody can give an answer to that. I think we're all going to make mistakes, learn a lot as we go, because there are two ends of the extreme here. We've got the secret style, just sit down, wait for things to come your way, keep manifesting it, and it will come your way. And we've got people, most of us here, entrepreneurs, who will do anything to get our goal. We keep pushing it, we put all the energy, and that's what leads to the stress and the burnout. So it was mainly more of a comment, really, not so much of a question. And I think for me is finding that, from the kind of job I do, I've always been in that really high achiever mode and got to the point of, near burnout. I didn't burn out, but you get to that point where you just don't have that energy to continue. And it's that fine balance where you allow things to come through you, but it to be honest, is not easy. I think for me, you almost feel as if you're not doing anything and you're just there, like, I need to do something. And when I reflect on those things I have actually pushed myself to do, yes, I have achieved, but was I the happiest person along the way? No, probably I wasn't. It was a stressful episode. It was something I just wanted it over and done with. I didn't even enjoy that experience. And at the end of the day, we're human beings. We don't know how long it's going to take us to achieve our goals. We might be here 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And that means you're going to live those 3 years in agony, in stress, in anxiety, worrying about what is going to happen or what's not going to happen. All we know is the now. We just have to do our best and just wait for everything else to fall into place. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask you a question, and remember, this is not it's not like let me ask you a question. Okay, everything that you just shared, if you observe, just an observation that it was all about how you can do something. Yes.
Yeah.
And remember, doing comes from ego. If you just slow down and say, I'm going to allow things to come to me, and that also doesn't mean that you just sit around. You're still doing things. Okay? You're working on things that are coming to you as in your intuition, rather than you going and finding things and saying, okay, I'm going to do this and that's going to make me money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And yes, I know what you're saying, and it is going to be a work in progress. But
it always
again,
is. It always is.
I think it's one of those where that's the way, well, I'll speak for myself. That's that upbringing, isn't it? Like, you go out and you're a go-getter, you go out to get things, you don't wait for things to fall on your laps, basically.
Yeah.
Is the kind of upbringing I've had, such that so in a very shameful way, sometimes what I really need is right in front of me, like it's presented to me on a platter of gold. But because I'm not focusing on it, I'm looking at what I want to get. It just goes, and you're not there. And sometimes, years later, when, if I'm lucky, that thing is still hanging around, I'm like, hang on, this has been here all this while. I could have used that rather than chasing something that I want. And it's difficult, because then how do you then do your goals? Then how do you set goals?
Let me share with you something. Okay, spirituality and business are not friends. They're not necessarily friends. Okay, they go against each other. Okay, so when you look at business, you have to have goals, and you have to be striving, and you have to be working towards, and everything else. They're not necessarily best friends. Okay. But when you mix spirituality into business, okay, and which is what I'm doing, for example, okay, what I tend to do is, even though when I wake up, I still do my things, right? I just do what needs to be done, but I just slow down a lot, and I allow things to come to me as well. Okay. If I'm not, like I said, instinctively feeling right, I just say no to something. Like I said, this is a 74-bed hotel. That's a big leap. Okay. Into any business. But I said no. And that's because it just didn't feel instinctively right. So slowing down and mixing this into your business plays a big part. Then what you're in essence doing is you're allowing things to come to you, and you work on things that have come to you in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Rather than going and finding things to do. Okay. Because when you go and find things to do, that's your ego saying, okay, I want to strive for more, I want to do more, I want to achieve more, I want to accumulate more, and so on. When you allow things to come to you, and now that they have come to you and you intuitively feel right, all of a sudden now you're working on things which you allowed in the first place. Now you're working, you're striving, you're achieving your goals, but these are the things that you allowed instinctively in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you feel, like I said, either no chaos or less chaos, and that you don't actually feel tired or burnt out, and you don't actually feel as tired either. I mean, I can tell you now, I was more tired before this session than I am now. How? I mean, I've just done a session. I'm supposed to be more tired than before I was the session, but I'm not. I'm a lot less tired, because this is something that I've allowed. It's almost like, I'm in the flow, right?
Yeah.
So it makes a big difference. I think I learned about 10 years ago or so that I really enjoyed teaching, okay? And I said, I'm going to focus on that, and I'm going to really do this, okay? My mother-in-law is a teacher. My wife used to be a teacher. But I never looked at teaching in this way. I always looked at teaching in the sense of, okay, how can I use teaching as a way to be able to grow my business. But it comes so naturally to me. And that's because, like I said, I've allowed this to come to me. I never knew in my 20s that I could ever do this. Never. I just never knew. And that's because I never allowed things to come to me. I always used to go and do things, find things to do. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
But again, like I said, my ego says it's not easy.
Yeah.
But if you look at spiritually, something like this is very, very easy. It's not very difficult. So sometimes it comes to me very easy. Other times it comes difficult.
Yeah. Okay.
I hope that makes a bit more sense.
It makes a bit more sense. But yes, I think I'm just on my path to clarifying these things and reminding myself all the time how to balance inaction and overaction. And to be honest, I still get a bit confused. Okay, when am I supposed to like quickly jump in at an opportunity, or when am I supposed to just wait and just let the moment pass? And as you said, it's business, isn't it? The culture of business doesn't really allow for that spirituality.
It doesn't.
You know, people tell you something and they want an answer like 2 years ago, really. You know, so it's all that I'm balancing it. But yes, I mean, in principle, I understand it. But in practicing it, it's a totally different ballgame entirely.
I agree. When you start to apply, you'll have a lot more questions. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a good start. Okay. Martin, any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Jack. Thank you very much.
Jennifer, any questions?
No questions as such, but I just wanted to say I understand what you were saying, because as a Christian, we believe in prayer, we believe in waiting and being patient for things to come. And it was interesting one time because doing the network and still hadn't done what I felt I needed to do to stand up and tell people I've done X, Y, Z. Initially, it bothered me. Then it was as if, again, being a Christian, I felt God was speaking to me to say, you'll do it at the pace I am allowing you to do it at, and also doing it in the way that it's going to be successful for you. So don't be looking around what everyone else is doing. And it wasn't until, I sat back and I said, okay, I'm going to wait. And then finding that actually my niche and what the strategy that I felt was so comfortable for me was the hotels. But maybe if I'd run ahead and got involved in so many other things that maybe my heart wasn't in, or I was just doing it for the sake of doing it, maybe, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't have held my attention the way that this has. Do you get what I'm saying? So for me, it's about praying and sometimes sitting back, and the wait is not easy.
No, it's not.
It's not easy when you're seeing others come flying by you and you're still sitting there and you're thinking, oh, what's happening here? But one of the things that we do read a lot is Proverbs, the book of wisdom. And I find people I've encountered who have read that particular book, they're not even Christians, but they apply it to their lives and they see results. So yeah, that's me.
And one thing I'd like to add here just is that sometimes even between intuition,
you've gone low. I can't hardly hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's a little better. Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying sometimes between ego and intuition, the difference can be very blurry.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Noreen, any questions?
No questions, but thank you.
Thank you. Falaki, I think you had your hand up. You have any questions?
Yes, it was. I was just off what Jennifer was saying, really, in terms of the pressure. And I was just going to ask her how she managed that, because then if you're doing events, I think everybody puts you on that pedestal, expecting you to have achieved something. So as you know, Jack, I do a lot of things on social media.
Yes, you do. Yes.
And the eyes that everybody looks at me is like somebody who has this multi-million-pound business and, you know, now has time to come and sit down and talk about it, which is not. Luckily, I don't allow that to get to me, so the, you know, the old imposter syndrome doesn't come. But in property, I'm just wondering how you then, I was just going to ask Jennifer if she was doing any property strategies when she was doing the events, and how did she then manage those questions or that mindset when, you know, those questions came as to, oh, you know, what are you doing? How can you help me?
I was very honest in the fact that how I came about even taking over the network was me just being bold and brassy and saying, look, I've done events, I've done event management, I've done concerts, I've done conferences, so I will do this. And from day one, initially, I don't do it so much now, but from day one, I told people, I have my own property. And then later on, I did have another property that I sold, but I'm here to facilitate this thing until I do what I need to do. So it never became an issue, you know. So for me, now that I am going into the hotel side of things, I feel now that's a strategy that I'm looking to be able to offer to my platform. So never feel intimidated. I refuse to feel intimidated. I was very honest. I said, look, when I find what I need to do or what needs to happen, it will happen. And people just kind of left it at that. They got into what I was offering. They liked me as an individual. They saw that I wanted to help them. So it didn't become an issue. And on top of that, I kind of knew what I was talking about. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Very well, it does. Yeah, thank you. Very well.
Okay.
I'd like to add something here, Falake, okay? You know, when it comes to speaking, okay, speaking is all about sharing your stories or sharing your experiences, okay? And they could be in any form. It doesn't have to be in a certain form, okay? People want to, it's almost like they're listening to you and they want to know your experience, okay? And that experience could be in any format, in any context, okay? It doesn't really matter that it has to be in property, okay? If you observe me, I speak at different stages and I speak at, you know, different places and so on, and, you know, but I share all about my journey from being an immigrant. You know, I don't share it. It's not about the journey that I've had in the last, you know, 4 or 5 years or whatever. It's the journey that I had, you know, right from day one. I mean, you know, I share that. I tell people that I came as an immigrant. I came here with nothing in my hand. You know, literally day one, I had 300 pounds. Okay. But at the same time, I share that, look, I remember working for Virgin Energy, or I remember working for, you know, literally standing on the side road selling Virgin Energy, and I struggled. Okay, but then people can then see through that you have done your bit to go through the experience to get to a point where you're now sharing the process that you're applying or you've applied. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't learn about the grow model, and I didn't learn about this spirituality stuff till I was like 30 years old. Okay, so I went through a phase of 10 years of struggle before I got to a point where I was able to learn and apply to my own life. And then after that, another 10 or 12 years where I've actually applied to my different aspects of life or different businesses in my life to be able to get to this point. Okay, but then people just want to, it's almost like you're telling them that story, and that story could be just yesterday's or even today's. You know, I told you a story about today, me saying no to a 74-bed hotel. Okay, so it doesn't have to be, it just has to be based on your experience. Okay, and what have you learned from that experience? Remember, enlightenment is all about learning from this moment. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and that doesn't have to be your own deal. It could be someone else's deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Robert, any questions?
I'm
You
Thank
are breaking, Robert. I can't hear you. Not sure why, but you're breaking. Shelley, any questions?
Yes, Jack, I want to ask you a question. Or you see, about to know yourself.
hear me?
How
Can you hear
long
me?
do you
Hello?
know yourself?
Sorry, Shelley, just give me
No,
one sec.
it's
Robert, yes,
terrible,
yes,
but-
we can hear you now.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, Robert. Yes, go ahead.
Fine, thank you.
I've lost you again. You need to, Robert, you need to sort your internet out first.
Thank you for asking, Jack.
Robert, I can't hear you. You're breaking. Okay. Shelley, go ahead, ask your questions till Robert sorts his broadband out.
Yes, Jack is asking you, how long do you know yourself? Because at my age now, I don't know exactly myself.
Okay, so learning and getting to know yourself, it's a journey of at least 10 years, if not more. Okay. You do have to go through some pain to be able to get to know you, who you are, and what you like and what you don't like, and so on and so forth. But the way to be able to get to know yourself more is spending more time in solitude. Okay, spending time alone, spending time reflecting on situations in your life, spending time reflecting on what have you done so far that hasn't worked, and what are the things that you've done that have worked really well, and really kind of digging deeper into the person that you are. Okay, and that really happens in just you spending time on your own in solitude, and that is the way it is. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Jack.
Thank you. Robert, I saw your message. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can ask. Yeah, I can see it's not a problem. All right, guys, this is the second session. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you.